Watch out, Ghost. Woo! Howdy, y'all. Ironhead here. Wanted to let you know that I'm going to be releasing a new series of videos based on RC vehicles, specifically probably short course trucks. I may at some point in time branch out to something else, but I'm going to start with the short course trucks. The reason I thought it might be interesting to release a video is this will be my first hobby grade RC vehicle. This will be the first time I've messed with anything RC outside of the kind of stuff that you're going to find in Walmart or Target or Radio Shack. I've looked on YouTube. There are a ton of videos for first-time RC folks, how to get into the hobby, how to get started, where to start, kind of a lot of information about that. The interesting thing is all of that information is based on or given by people who have been in the RC hobby for a long time. There's nothing wrong with that. Their experience will be invaluable to new people getting into RC. However, my job today in the real world is to take new reps that we hire and train them up to be prepared to go out on the sales floor. We have a pretty intense 13-week training program we put our reps through before we put them out on the floor. And one of the things that I've noticed is it is difficult once you've been doing something for many, many, many years, in my case almost a decade, it's difficult to remember everything that you felt when you were brand new. So I'm going to bring you a video series from a different perspective. I'm going to bring you a series on getting into RC from the perspective of someone who just got into RC. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I do love cars, trucks, the real thing. I build hot rods, I race them. I don't do a lot of racing anymore because I got married and my wife's just not thrilled about that. I do love everything mechanical. I love working with electronics. I build prop lightsabers for fun. A lot of times now because I can't build race cars with my wife. So, I'm pretty familiar with mechanical items. I'm pretty familiar with electrical items. So, I do have a lot of experience that I think will translate very well into the RC hobby. We'll see how that goes. My plan is to start from scratch. That's easy enough. I don't have anything, so I have to start from scratch. Then I want to make videos along the way. This video to get you intro to what I'm doing, talk a little bit about what I looked at before I went and evaluated my first vehicle, an unboxing of whatever my first purchase happens to be, first impressions after I drive it, take some videos of driving it, and talk you through any of the things that I noticed and just some of the things that some of the guys just forget about because they've been doing it so long they forgot what it was like to be new. So maybe this video or this series will help y'all avoid some pitfalls that I might walk into. I might be able to call out a few things that you may not be aware of and that some of the veterans forget about because, again, they haven't been new for a long time. Hopefully there'll be some helpful stuff here in this series. What I considered before I made my first purchase. The first thing I wanted to consider is what am I going to do with it? My thinking was I'm going to drive it around my property. I have an acreage out in rural Oklahoma, and I was just going to drive it around out here and have a good time with it. Wouldn't mind going to the track and doing a race or two on occasion, but it's just not something that I have a lot of time for. The track's not super close to where I live. So really, for the most part, I'm going to drive it around on my property. So I wanted something I could have a good time with out here off-road on my property. The next thing I wanted to look at was specifically where am I going to drive it? Am I going to drive it out in some of the unmaintained portions of my acreage? Am I going to drive it in my backyard, the area that I maintain? Do I want to drive it out on the street? A little bit of both. Personally, I decided that I was going to drive it on the maintained part of my yard. This is my helper dog right here. It's Mr. Ghost. Thanks, buddy. Hop on down. Thank you. I was going to drive it on my grass, the maintained part of my backyard. It would be great if I could drive it in some of the non-maintained portions as well, but for the most part, I was just going to hop in my backyard and cruise the thing around. When I went to the RC store, full disclosure, I've already been and I've made my purchase. We'll talk about that in a minute. The guy asked me what I was going to do with it, and he said, are you going to race it or are you just going to do bashing? And I thought, well, I'm not going to take it and slam it up against the wall, which is what I think of when I think of bashing. And so he had to explain what bashing was to me. If you don't know, bashing is just literally taking the thing, driving it around, doing crazy jumps, doing all kinds of stuff. Doesn't mean you're deliberately trying to bash or wreck the car. It just means that you're using it You're not really trying to fine-tune it for racing. You're just out there driving around, having a good time, jumping, doing all kinds of stuff, and oh no, if it rolls over and you scratch it up or you crack something here or there, it's not a big deal. So bashing really just means you're going to take it out and probably drive it pretty hard and just have a good old time with it. Racing, of course, means you're going to go to your local RC hobby shop or whatever your local track is and actually participate in some races. So I told them most of what I was going to be doing is bashing. I'd love to come up and do some racing, so I'd love to have something that can do both. But the majority of the time, probably 99% of the time, would just be bashing in the backyard. The next thing I wanted to know is, was it upgradable? I talked to you earlier, I'm big into mechanical things. I love working on stuff. I love working with my hands. So I wanted something that I could actually work on. I wanted something that I could improve as my driving skill improved or as I found more things I wanted to do with it. So it needed to be something that I could upgrade. Next thing, of course, is budget. Budget is really important. If you're getting into RC, you got to go into it with your eyes wide open. It is not the most expensive hobby you can get into. Take it from a guy who builds real hot rods. It's not even close to the most expensive hobby, but it darn sure is not needlepoint. It costs some money to get in, and once you get in, it costs more money as you grow into the hobby. So doesn't mean that you can't buy one truck or one vehicle that's ready to run, comes with everything in the box, and leave it exactly like that and drive around and have a good time. You absolutely can. But I'll tell you, as we go through this series, you're going to find there's probably going to be some things you're going to want to spend a little bit more money on as you go. And those things are going to come up sooner rather than later. So eyes wide open going in. Be prepared for that. Last thing is research. You've got to be willing to do a little bit of research. If you go to your hobby shop, they can definitely help you, and that should be part of your research. Your local hobby shop should absolutely be part of your research. That's probably where you're going to get help. If you break something, it's probably where you're going to get help with tuning. It's where you're going to get parts, unless you're, again, way far away to go order them online. Personally, I'm an instant gratification guy. If I break something, I want to be able to go get the parts and fix it right away so I can get right back out to driving around and having a good time. I don't want to wait a week for parts to show up at my house. So you got to consider those kinds of things. You definitely talk to your hobby shop. Go online. There's a ton of videos on YouTube on how to get into RC. This is not the definitive guide on how to get into RC. This is just a guide from the perspective of somebody who's brand new. You also want to get the perspective of people who have been in it and have been doing it for a long time. They have insight that I don't have. They have experience that I don't have. I will tell you, when you go to your local hobby shop, I work in a sales organization. They're trying to sell you something, and they're probably pretty heavily influenced towards a particular brand. That's okay. It doesn't make that brand bad. It just means there's other options to consider. So definitely talk to your local hobby shop, but don't make that the only piece of research you do. Go in there as an informed buyer. All right, before I let y'all go, one more thing I want to show you. I have been to my local hobby shop. I have made my purchasing decision, and I want to go ahead and show you guys what it is that we're going to be working on primarily as we get into the beginning part of this video series. The purchase I made is the Traxxas Raptor. This is a two-wheel drive Traxxas Slash. They call it the Raptor, of course, because it has a licensed Ford Raptor body on it. I'm a huge Ford guy. This was a no-brainer for me. My biggest debate when I went into the hobby shop, I'd already pretty much decided on the Slash. I talked to them. They reinforced that decision. My biggest question was, do I do two-wheel drive or do I do four-wheel drive? Full disclosure, I bought two-wheel drive. The Raptor only comes in two-wheel drive. They didn't have any four-wheel drive trucks in stock. That helped me make my decision a little bit easier. Truth be told, I was really anxious and really fired up. I had an opportunity to go ahead and make a purchase, and I didn't want to wait for a week or so for them to get another four-wheel drive truck in stock. That helped me make my decision to two-wheel drive, and the Raptor, again, I'm a Ford fan, is a no-brainer. Stay tuned. Hopefully you find some good information in this series. If you have questions or anything specifically you want me to cover, throw them in the comments below. Next video is going to be an unboxing, first impression video of the Traxxas Raptor Slash. Thanks a lot, guys. This is the Ironhead. I'll catch you next time.